Let's dive into another list of astonishing items that have appeared on the Antique Roadshow. One of the items includes a rare Wild West revolver. This letter by the famous writer Beatrix Potter survived for almost 100 years. A woman brought in a letter which was written by Beatrix Potter. The letter was written to the woman's mother, whose name was Marjorie, and the date of writing was June 25th, 1903.
Now tell me about it. Who is it written to?
It's written to my mother.
How did you know Beatrix Potter?
My grandmother was an artist, and she had met Beatrix Potter through Miss Woodward, who was an illustrator of children's books.
The content of the letter was casual and pretty funny. Beatrix wrote about her rat named Sammy and 2 rabbits named Nutkins and Twinkleberry. It's interesting how her most famous work is a book which is also based on a rabbit. Beatrix Potter is a famous English writer who wrote the popular children's book, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Beatrix had written Peter Rabbit for the son of her former governess in 1893. The book was later published by Frederick Warne and Co. in 1902, after many rejections. It has had over 45 million copies sold and is one of the best-selling books in history. Beatrix Potter's original sketches for her books are held at the Beatrix Potter Gallery in Cumbria, England. But back to the woman's letter, what would it be worth?
Well, 10 or 15 years ago, I'd have said that a letter like this, delightfully illustrated, will be worth somewhere in the region of £200 or £300. But nowadays, I'm afraid, so much is the taste for Beatrix Potter that a letter like this would fetch somewhere between £20,000 and £25,000 today.
A cupboard brought in by a couple was tested for originality by the show's appraiser. The lady claimed she inherited the cupboard from her parents, who had equally inherited it. Was this cupboard an original or derivative?
If these handles are original, then there will be lots of marks inside. So to make really sure, and to prove my point, we take the drawer out, and there you can see, there's the knob, the hole for the large Victorian one, and there are the other 2 holes where the split pins went.
After checking the cupboard's handles and woods, the appraiser verified that it was indeed an original from the 18th century, made at about 1710. An amazing fact that was revealed was that the legs of the cupboard were attached 50 or 60 years after the cupboard was made, because such leg design wasn't invented at the time the cupboard was made. Regardless of the fact that the cupboard had a really rough ride while it was being transported in an estate car, the damage to it was minor.
Despite falling out of a car, the condition is extremely good.
The furniture made in the 18th century must be really tough.
It is such a good-looking piece that it ought to be insured for £6,500.
After hearing the value of this sideboard, this lady will probably want to keep it protected by all means. An elderly woman brought a wooden sideboard which she inherited from her grandmother. Her grandmother's family were originally from New Galloway, Kirkcudbright. The sideboard is a Scottish sideboard called the Scottish Sheraton due to its Sheraton style, which was made in the 18th century. The design was given the name by its originator, Thomas Sheraton, and it was characterized by a feminine refinement of the Georgian furniture styles. The design was a major source of inspiration for most furniture made during the 18th century. Scottish Sheraton furniture has a good reputation for their classy style and high prices at auction. The owner was shocked upon hearing the sideboard valued at £25,000.
How much?
25,000.
Really? Good heavens.
This woman's admirer must really fancy her to give her such a beautiful gift. A woman brought a Victorian pottery which she had in her possession for about 20 years. She inherited it from her aunt, who received the pottery from an admirer.
Lovely, yes.
With the factory mark, Mermontoft's Faience, grand-sounding name, used by the Leeds Fireclay Company. They started as an architectural firm making glazed bricks and pieces for buildings, and they got into the great Victorian craze of making art pottery.
A highly skilled painter was hired by the company to design some of their pieces in Anglo-Persian style.
But the sad thing is, we don't know who it belongs to. The mark was clearly someone very skilled who understood high Victorian taste of the time, but we don't know their name.
The design is, however, regarded as a copy of William de Morgan's style. Morgan was widely known for his Islamic design patterns, and his pieces were the height of fashion in the 1880s and displayed in great exhibitions in London. Could this reputation affect the price of the pottery in the marketplace?
But even a good old Bermontoft piece is certainly going to be, I would think, £4,000 or £5,000.
Really? That's amazing.
Guess it doesn't matter whether it's a copy as long as the design is beautiful and appeals to the buyer. This rare 1837 Colt Paterson revolver represents an important milestone in firearms history. Invented by Samuel Colt in Paterson, New Jersey, it was one of the first successful repeating handguns. The revolutionary 5-shot cylinder design marked a major advance from single-shot pistols and muskets of the era. Colt patented the solid frame and percussion cap ignition system, enabling repeated firing without risk of chain detonations. The Paterson Colt gave American soldiers and settlers overwhelming firepower, helping to tame the Wild West and displace Native Americans. Only a handful of the earliest prototype Paterson Colt revolvers still exist today, making them enormously valuable. The Colt Paterson marked the genesis of repeating firearms and mass firepower that would come to dominate the world. This pristine example retains its original finish, and all serial numbers match.
They were fantastic light cavalry. They could strike and then go away, but when they were faced with that relentless volley of lead, they just stood no chance.
Colt perfected the revolver mechanism, which became the prevalent handgun design for over a century. This exceptionally rare survivor represents Sam Colt's legacy as one of history's most influential gunsmiths. The owner acquired this iconic revolver over 40 years ago, paying £150, which was considered a good price at the time. But what would the revolver be worth today?
Get it. I have no reason to doubt that it's not a right one. If it is, then I think it's got to be £150,000.
Oh, well.
It's an unusual revolver, isn't it?
I think it's the most important firearm I've ever seen on the Roadshow.
Okay.
You know, 31 years. Thank you very much.
That's a pleasure.
What are you going to do with it next?
Well, I'm open to offers.
Watch our other videos to discover other amazing finds on the Antique Roadshow.